Welcome to another episode on the Home Tech Talk podcast. My name is Jake.
And my name is Aidan.
On this episode, we'll be covering the Stereonet HIFI Show in Melbourne. I unfortunately wasn't able to make it. However, Aidan went down and had a chat with a few guys.
Yeah, as part of our coverage of the Stereonet HIFI Show, I was lucky enough to catch up with Tom Garrett from TRINNOV and Michael Cox from KRIX, and they gave us a rundown on their product sets and what sort of the intricacies and high performance specification of each of these brands. It was very interesting.
Yeah, so we hope you enjoy, and please don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up to date.
All right, thank you for joining us. Today on our episode, we'll be covering TRINNOV and KRIX with Tom from TRINNOV and Michael from KRIX. Thanks for coming down, having a chat.
No worries.
So do you want to give me a bit background? I mean, we were hoping to cover KRIX in an Australian series, so I mean, we'll get to that at some point, but one of a premium Australian product. What's the background on KRIX? And
So from back in 1974, Scott KRIX finished university and sort of decided that he wanted to start making his own speakers. He thought, why can't why can't he make speakers on an international level, like really early on? So as he came out of uni, he started making speakers for friends and family. He started up a stereo hi-fi shop.
Right.
And just created a bit of that sort of culture around Adelaide. Started his 2-channel store and just started getting uni students, doctors, those sorts of guys in and just listening and enjoying speakers to the speakers. So soon after that, his shop was near the Capri Cinema in Adelaide, commercial cinema, who had a problem with the sound in their room, in their big cinema. And he went and they invited him to check it out and see what was going on. So he essentially came up with the infinite baffle wall idea, and also his first set of commercial cinema speakers. So both of those were done at the same time, and word sort of got around about just how great that sounded all through Australia. So from there, Scott and a few of his brothers just went around, and a few others went around Australia and installed commercial cinema speakers throughout commercial cinemas all around Australia, all through the 80s. And into the 90s. So.
Yeah, right. So is it fair to say that the predominant market now is not 2-channel, it is cinema?
We have, in terms of sort of where our markets are at the moment, it differs like year to year, but overall it's normally about 50% commercial cinema, 50% home, whether that's dedicated or home entertainment. So it is quite balanced. Some years it's 60-40 or but they sort of even each other out quite well.
Yeah.
And one, the technology from one sort of flows through to the home quite well as well. So
yeah, I mean, I was making comment to Tom yesterday that the KRIX dealer base is just the most dedicated dealer base in terms of their product passion and their commitment to the brand that I sort of see in our industry. So it's kind of cool that you've partnered up with TRINNOV.
Yeah, it's great. We've got some fantastic dealers, and a lot of them we're very happy to even call friends as well. They're really good guys, so and girls. So
yeah, cool. And Tom, TRINNOV, background French.
So yes, we're a French company. We're 15 years old. We were founded by 3 university friends and did some initial research into 3D audio. That is the capture, processing, management of the sound field. And from there, they developed their first product, which was effectively just manipulating the sound in an environment. And we spooled out from that into various divisions, which we've got now 3 of them. So at the moment, we've got our pro market, which is post-production, recording studios. That's generally the pro market. We've got our commercial cinema, where we also tie up with KRIX in Australia. Right. And then we've got our home market, which is home theatre and hi-fi.
Yeah, cool. It's perfect match, really,
it's
in terms of
very good
market coverage.
Very good relationship.
What is it about TRINNOV that makes it so special? I mean, anyone that doesn't know what TRINNOV is probably needs. I guess that's why they're watching this, perhaps. But I mean, most of the people in the industry have a pretty good idea of what TRINNOV is, and it's definitely considered the pinnacle of surround sound processing.
It's a position we've grown to, and we're not 100% comfortable with it.
Right.
To be deemed to be the top, it's nice, but it's not what we ultimately strive for. What we're trying to do is deliver the best experience for people to work with, and we want people to have the best rooms, the best sound. And what makes us different? Well, the fact we do everything in software probably is what we want to do best.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, all our products are based around a Linux platform, and we do all the software decoding, software manipulation of sound, and it means ultimately we've got a really long lifespan of our product.
Yeah.
Other manufacturers have to ultimately either give you a hardware upgrade every 2 years if you're lucky. In our case, we just basically go, new software, new technology, implement it into our SDK, software development kit, implement it into the kernel, click compile, and then we send it out to our customers. So
as codecs develop and as new things features and whatever come available, you guys can just push those out to your processors, and there's no reason to upgrade hardware.
Precisely. The only hardware we designed to be upgraded is the HDMI board, because that's not a fixed platform. It's a continuously moving target. So otherwise, codec-wise, we've done so much work on that over the years. And we've also added extra value features. So we added to the Altitude 32 and the Altitude 16 what we call the +4 option.
Right.
This was just because one of the engineers came up with an idea that we could enhance the product appeal. And ultimately, it just means we're using the SPDIF and the TOS-link out, and it gives you the ability to squirt 2 extra channels per connector out.
Right.
4 extra channels. So very simple. Use a little external digital to analog converter, and there you are, 4 extra channels free of charge.
Yeah, right. So that allows you to capture those multiple subwoofer channels.
Exactly, and that's the whole concept. So in our demo room here in Melbourne, we're running a 944.
Yeah.
So that's 9 bed channels, 4 discrete subs, and 4 overheads. That's done on 20 channels. So we're using 2 little external D2As to drive the subwoofers.
So that's on an Altitude 16 here.
Precisely, yeah. So
and the MX40 is bi-amped, so that's where the extra 3 comes from.
Yeah.
So 12 for the bed and 4 subs, 4 overheads.
Yeah. In terms of the calibration and the operation of a TRINNOV, you can actually run it as an active crossover system, and then have discrete control of your high and low frequency for your front main channels.
Precisely.
Yeah. Wow.
So in this case, we're using, just as Michael said, a bi-amp, or a true active crossover left, right, centre. In the last time we were in Melbourne, which was 4 years ago, we did a 3-way crossover.
Right.
Because the speakers were 3 ways, and we needed 7 screen channels. So straight away we used up 21 channels of our channel budget on just the screen channels the last time. So
wow, okay. So that MX40, is that the biggest of the MX line?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's sort of the newest one we've developed.
Yep.
But in that one, we were just able to take it up one more notch from the MX30, move to a 3-way design. So our MX series had a 3-way. We redeveloped the HFMF horn, or not we built it from scratch, and a brand new MF driver in there as well. So there's quite a bit of new sort of tech in that product.
Yeah. Okay. And that's running bi-wired or actively crossed over for one crossover point. Is the high frequency and mid got a passive crossover
inside?
Unit?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. What are the other features? I mean, that TRINNOV is known for is like 3D remapping, and there's some pretty serious technology in there.
So most of our technology is bespoke. Sorry, let me find out. All of our technology is completely bespoke. We don't rely on any third-party software engineers. Other manufacturers don't have that luxury. So one of our little tricks is 3D remapping, which you just mentioned. Yep. And that is the ability to create a phantom channel where there isn't a channel. So quite often we'll use a left-right screen channel with a center above or below, and then we can remap that center to be acoustically center of the screen. Right. It's a really great facility, especially with larger fixed panel screens now. Here in Australia, I've seen some 100-inch, which are really cost effective. Yeah. That can displace a lot of budget projectors and give a better image. But the challenge is it's not acoustic transparent. So in that case, 3D remapping is an absolute godsend because it gives you the perfect center channel position.
Yeah.
Same
Cool.
with surrounds as well, isn't it? If you've got a door or window or something that's really where a speaker should be, you can move that speaker and 3D remap it so it will appear that it's coming from where it's meant to be positioned.
And that's kind of just the advanced psychoacoustic capability of the TRINNOV that was developed in that initial.
Again, it's something we developed in-house. It's something we hold very dearly to our hearts because it is so unique about what we do.
Yeah.
And it does give you the ability to design rooms around the challenges that they present, basically.
Yeah. So TRINNOV can do speaker calibration in terms of calibrating specifically to a speaker,
Yes,
and then
so-
taking into consideration that that's also within the room.
So what we can do, we can measure the speaker in terms of impulse. We can measure the phase. We can measure group delay. We can measure the direct sound, the reflected sound. And then we can manipulate all of that across every channel in the room. And we can just basically pull it all together harmoniously. And we can do it up to 19224 natively. So from that perspective, we've got a lot of horsepower under the hood.
Yeah.
So we don't have to downsample.
Okay. And that's got some, I mean, that all sounds wonderful from your side of things. But as an integrator or a technician, how the hell does anyone implement that? Like, how do you go about, I mean, I know because I've done the product, but I mean, generally speaking, that sounds terrifying for somebody to try and implement an active crossover system in a surround sound processor, then calibrate the speaker, then calibrate to a room.
It's not hard, and I'll tell you a little secret here. I've worked with TRINNOV now for over 7 years, and I've never read the manual. So from that perspective, it's hand on heart serious.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, it's a case of just follow the wizard. So what we developed in the last couple of years to make it a bit easier is almost an installation wizard. So you plug the unit in, you define what we call the channel layout, then you go next. Then basically you say, how many speakers have I got? Well, I've got 7, left, right, center. Oh, my fronts are bi-wired or bi-amped.
Yeah.
You drop the crossovers in. The manufacturer, in this case KRIX, will give you the settings you need to plumb in. So it's not hard. You then calibrate the levels. If you've got different sensitivities on your amplifiers, that's done by our patented microphone. Really easy again. Move on. Then you take the measurement of the whole room. It time aligns, positions of speakers in 3D space. And at the end of it, the only thing which requires a bit more intelligence or a bit more effort is putting in what we call the target curve, which is effectively the sound shape you want to create in the room. And that is, it takes a bit of practice, let's not deny that.
Yeah.
But what's really cool about our platform is here in Australia, we've got Michael from KRIX, who is our partner, and he basically can remote into any TRINNOV in Australia and basically sit there remotely with you when you're calibrating and guide you through what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So from that perspective, nobody is alone high and dry. It really is a full support package that we offer, and Michael helps to instigate.
Yeah. Cool.
It's a big thing, that remote login. We can sort of before we even go out to commission it or that, you can set it up, help walk through it if needed, and before you even go out on site, just make sure it's looking good from that point of view before you even go on site. Yeah.
And in Australia, which is a large continent, it's not necessarily easy just to go out and roll a van for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So the ability even for a dealer to log in remotely and help a client, that is the nth degree of ultimate support. And for us, it's just, well, it's what's made Australia one of the biggest markets for us.
Yeah. Talking about that microphone, that is a special piece of equipment all of its own. I mean, you can't turn up to site with that microphone and not look professional.
It's a nice tool, and a lot of customers want one to play with.
Yeah, right.
So there's been a few people over the years have asked for dummy microphones where there's no guts in it effectively.
Really?
But what makes a microphone really cool is the sensitivity is plus or minus 0.01 dB, which is pretty high.
That is extremely high.
It can place a speaker to 1 centimeter plus or minus, and a driver to plus or minus 1 centimeter. So if you've got a 3-way horn, it will locate the acoustic center of each element, and then on top of that, it will position a speaker to plus or minus 1 degree. So yeah, it's a pretty spectacular piece of kit. And
that's how you get that extremely detailed surround effect that you don't seem to get. Surround processors, they give you that surround thing, but sometimes there's a lack of the sense of space. So when I noticed when I had TRINNOV in my showroom that the the sense of space that you are viewing is almost feels like the actual room changes acoustically of the effect of the acoustic space. It's quite incredible detail.
For us, what we want to achieve really is to make the room disappear. TRINNOV stands for 3D innovation. So what we try to do is just make sure that the room disappears, and that's how we've done it through 3D capture of the sound, processing the sound, and then delivering it on their preamp out. So you go into amplifiers, and we're really chuffed with what it achieves, and the sound we've done thousands and thousands of units globally, and every single one of those really sets the benchmark for what's achievable with digital acoustics.
Yeah. With regard to KRIX, do they have any implementation of like the TRINNOV's digital capability of like an altitude 32, or is it just all basically operating in the analog domain post TRINNOV?
Yeah, it's all more happening in the analog domain. From a speaker point of view. Yeah.
Okay. So, and they're partnered up with using your amplitude amplifiers.
Yes, they have
regularly.
So, one of the most common configurations here is obviously altitude 16, and then a load of amplifiers from the amplitude range, different power for different solutions. The new KRIX sub-amp is going to prove to be very nice because we don't deliver enough power for subs.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a really nice complement moving forward.
Yeah.
And at some point there'll be audio over IP, but that really opens up a complete new kettle of a new sort of box of frogs to get into.
And is TRINNOV doing Dante for that, or is it AES?
Well, the problem, let's sort of look at this from another position. The biggest challenge with audio over IP is the clock. Mm-hmm. So in other words, you have a master clock. That typically is your source. So if we're looking at something like a Blu-ray player, that will switch between 44.1 kilohertz, which is CD, 48 kilohertz, which is some Blu-rays, 96, which is other Blu-rays, all the way to 192. So you've got these multiple sample frequencies. Now, audio over IP, Dante, AES 67, AVB, Ravener, they were all designed with a fixed clock because they came from the professional studio market. But here in the residential market, the clock is never fixed. So you have to have some form of sample rate conversion. Now, here's the rub. Most of the amplifiers on the market don't like switching sample rate on the fly. You have to reboot them. So realistically, what you're going to do here with audio over IP is take everything down to the lowest common denominator, which is 48 kilohertz. So, there potentially could be a questionable loss of quality here because you're taking everything from, let's say, 96, which is a nice high quality Blu-ray, and dumbing it down to 48K to get audio over IP to be implemented. Yeah. So for me, audio over IP is not about audiophile, it's about implementation ease.
Yeah.
So if you're an audiophile edged person, then I'd probably go back to the original analog outputs and use those. But if you're an integrator and you just use a massive house where you need to have some amps remotely, for example, then audio over IP can work. But there is a sacrifice in quality. So on that front, we're going to be launching and adding Ravener to our platform shortly. And that will be a free software upgrade, which is pretty cool. So that will give us AES 67 backwards compatibility. And obviously with AES 67, you can then bridge over to Dante, AVB. So ultimately, we've gone with a solution which is software-based and will give you the best cross-platform compatibility. But for me, it's not necessarily the performance solution.
Right. And that'll be in an altitude 32.
And 16 as well.
Yeah, right.
All existing owners will get the software update. And we'll hope to have it out probably Q1 next year.
And that will allow for whatever the channel count of the processor is to be over a single data connection.
Exactly. That's the whole concept. Yeah, a whole twisted pair. So
yeah. Yeah, well, that is super flexible.
It's a nice little trick in the fact, we've done it free of charge where other manufacturers probably charge you somewhere around $4,000.
Yeah, and then it's a hardware chipset inside that they can't then upgrade later down the line.
So, we play our flexibility to our heart's content here.
Yeah.
Because we can just add new stuff. From the development side, we've got loads and loads of work going on at the moment. Over COVID, because everybody was working remotely in France, we actually added quite a lot of members to our R&D team. So I think we're going to have some big news, probably Q4. Can't say anything. It's all patent pending, but there's some big stuff coming out, and that will really redefine what the end user experience is.
Yeah, wow. And speaking of new announcements, I mean, Krix is coming up for their 50-year anniversary. So what do you got to spill for us on that one?
We're still having a think. It's not an argument. Everyone's got their ideas on what they want to do for 50 years. I think at the end of the day, it'll probably come down to Scott and Gary and Ash. So the three Krix brothers, sort of the owners of the company. I think it'll come down to them. We'll probably put them in a room with a good bottle of wine and let them sort of figure out what they want to do. So whether that's I don't know. There's MX 3000 or something.
That's quite the milestone, 50 years for an Australian speaker manufacturer.
For any speaker manufacturer. But the fact it's 50 years is an amazing achievement.
Yeah. No, we're excited about that one coming up. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, cool. Is there anything else coming out of Krix that we need to be aware of? So just run me through. So you've basically, in the cinema space, we've got the MX line.
Yeah. So from a dedicated home cinema perspective, we've got three ranges. So we've got SX, MX, and X. So the very first one was Series X, which was sort of short for extreme. Sort of scaled down from commercial cinema down to home. From that, not everyone could put in these really big Series X cinemas, so we put in SX, which was sort of like scaled down X. So smaller surrounds and front speakers that would fit inside your normal shaped rooms, but still give you that not commercial, but that cinema level performance in your own home, and the Megaphonics is a big part of that line. And then from there we developed the MX, which is modular X. So where you can pretty much ease of installation. Say to your installers, we need a niche that's this big, X by Y by Z dimensions in the wall, and you can just slot the MX product into place, and it maintains that infinite baffle that Scott originally used in commercial cinemas. So it recreates that. We've got acoustic absorption material on the front, so it recreates that type environment and setup. And they're the three ranges across dedicated home cinema. And within the MX there's the 5, 10, 20, 30 and 40. So it's not just, we started with the 20 and and it's not just starting. We started with the 20 and 30, but as we went along, there was that sort of market where the 5 and the 10, we opened that up, brought them out, and they've just gone really well for us. So that sort of enthusiast type market where the person might want to do the installation themselves. They might not necessarily, be able to put in a big MX30. Their room's a bit smaller, so they can all the way up from the MX5. They've got a choice between budget options or size of room or so.
And they fit both aspect ratios for CinemaScope and 16:9, and then you basically scale out based on the size of your screen or room. Yeah,
so to maintain that that infinite baffle, what we do is we've got absorption spacer modules. Right. So for the 20, 30 and 40, they come in different sizes, 200mm or 325. And for the 5 and 10, they come in 315mm variants. So they come as pairs. Yeah. And essentially you add them to build the speakers out to the width of the screen that you need, so that you don't have a screen that's this wide and the speakers only fill up this much. So it helps you reach your recommended angles that you want for your front sound stage, so without breaking the baffle. Yeah, cool. And are people, so if you're doing a cinema that wasn't, or even if it is MX front end or X series front end, and then you use the SX series to fill out your surround effects, that's pretty much it. Yeah. So the SX range has got a whole range of speakers in it that are compact, angled. They might be a bit bigger with bigger sensitivity. So it's just about picking the right speaker for the room and the installation type you want to use. So the Megaphonics is a really good example. I think we're up to 6 variants of that. We've got a center, in-room, in-wall. There's just a whole bunch of different ways we go, I want this, this is a speaker, but I need to install it in this way. Then we'll have a variant to to be able to install that.
Yeah. Have you guys worked on a target curve, like a KRIX proprietary target curve, or is it more of a room-based thing? Or
there's a couple of solutions out there. One of the colleagues at KRIX came up with a generalistic target curve, which can be preloaded, so it makes it a lot quicker from an installation perspective. But at the end of the day, you can, if you want to, just tweak a little bit of it just to get that last 5 or 10% performance out. So you can put a general target curve in, but you still need to fine-tune it just to get that nth degree out, which is where a good quality calibrator can help.
Yeah. And a bit of personal taste as well.
Exactly.
Like a bit more sparkle here or there, but there's nothing sort of with our design of the speakers. We try and, design them to, just present what was intended. We don't have any sort of big things that need to be fixed, sort of pre-EQ or anything like that. So we want to, so if you just put the system in, it sounds great without having to, put in crazy PEQs or targets or anything like that. It's more adding the salt and pepper, as our electrical engineer likes to say, just adding that final tweak on top, not having to change the whole main course.
Okay. I mean, one of my favourite features with TRINNOV has been that you can have multiple presets. So I like to have, when it's quite common that, there'll be one particular person driving the home theatre project, and it's common for them to sit down and experience their room at their, whatever their dream was to create, that's what they want their experience to be. And then there'll be other times where they're having like a family experience or they're watching sport or something. So you can actually have different presets and have them available on call to just change the effect of the room. So, open up the listening position to accommodate multiple chairs, or dial it right in tight on one single seat.
And that's a really nice functionality because, if you want to sit on your own in the theatre and enjoy it, why should we take other people into account? Yeah. Or then if you've got mum, dad, kids, granny, grandpa there, let's bring them into the experience. But you can also do slightly other different changes. So let's say you've got your friends coming around and you want to show off a bit, the old jazz hands. You can just, crank up the subs a little bit, crank up that 80 hertz to 100 hertz to get a bit more chest impact. Just make it sound a bit more wow. Yeah. If you're a gamer and you're playing Call of Duty, you may just want to peak those subs at the same frequency as the gun. So when you're there, shooting people, it really does give you a big impact. Or late at night, you may want to just take them down a bit if you're gaming again, so you're not rattling the house to bits. Again, you can do lots of customization here with the presets. There's 29 of them available, and you can do some very funky stuff. If you've got a little automation system, then you can have little logic like if time equals greater than midnight, then call up midnight preset. Yeah. So that's something you can do with Control 4, RTI, Crestron, AMX, for example. Yeah. Makes it a really nice integration solution.
Yeah, wow. I mean, we've used it not probably to that extent, but it is a really cool feature to be able to do. Speaking of gaming, that's a big market that's happening? I mean, I think I started to catch on to that happening.
It's massive. Gaming now is probably the largest revenue generator in terms of the entertainment space. Yeah. So it's huge. And we're now seeing professional gamers not just having a pair of headphones. They're now sitting there with an immersive screen, immersive surround sound, for want of a better expression. Yeah. And they are literally living the dream, playing it almost as if they were first person. The biggest challenge there was low latency, and really you've got to get your latency down on the video side, and that is the biggest challenge moving forward.
Yeah, and is that something that TRINNOV can handle in terms of its processing power?
The audio side we're fine. It's the video latency which is typically the biggest challenge.
And so that's when you're passing it through the processor.
So from that side, we're straight in, straight out. So we don't add any video delay. Yeah. But some projectors can have up to 200-300 milliseconds of delay. So that's why on some flat panels you'll always see like a game-in mode. Yeah. That just basically turns off all the post-processing and slams it down as low as it can do. So, it's an interesting place going forward.
Do you see much call for gaming, Rick?
Yeah. a lot of our staff at Krix are gamers. Like
Oh,
I'm a
right.
gamer, I'm a
right.
gamer myself as well. So
Right.
you know, like Battlefront and that sort of thing when that first came out, that just absolutely blew me away. I didn't have it in Atbos, but you know, when the thermal grenades go off and you got you know 4 big 18s going off, it's So we definitely think it's a great market to capture for sure.
Cool.
So.
All right. Thank you very much for coming in and joining us and giving us some insight into the products.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Us, it's been really great.
Thank you very much.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like and subscribe to keep up to date and see many more from the Stereonet HIFI Show in Melbourne.
Thanks for watching, and there'll be links in the description below for each of the products that we discussed in this episode.